once again, I must ask, does anybody have a spare goaltender? Welcome to From Center Ice. My name is Courtney. I got a haircut. And I am here to recap the weekend that was in Chicago Blackhawks hockey because the Hawks took on the two New York teams. Sorry, Buffalo, you are not included in this because you don't have New York in your name. But the Rangers and the Islanders do, and those are the two teams that the Blackhawks took on this weekend. First up was Saturday night at Madison Square Garden. It's usually a fun outing when the Hawks go up against the Rangers. You know, they have their old friend in Artemi Panarin over there on the other side, and you just had to think that Patrick Kane was gonna show up in this one. Of course, he wants to show off for his old line mate, and he didn't get the Blackhawks on the board first, but 2 minutes and 38 seconds into the first period, Reese Johnson got the Blackhawks on the board first. Boris Tkachuk knocked over Libor Hayek, a defenseman for the New York Rangers, picked up the puck in the left circle, sent it up to the point to Jake McCabe, who took the shot toward the net, but Reese Johnson, standing right there in the slot, deflected it past Yaroslav Halak. It was 1-0 Chicago. And that was the only goal in the first period, so these two teams went into the first intermission with the Blackhawks having the 1-0 advantage. On to the second period. And we don't start out with a goal here, we start out with a fight because Jujhar Khaira took on Jacob Trouba. Trouba had laid a hit on Jason Dickinson earlier in the shift, but you have to think this fight was more about last season. And if you can do a little rewinding in your head and think back that far, Jacob Trouba was the one who knocked Jujhar Khaira out cold on the ice. He had to be stretchered off, and he missed a lot of time due to that injury. So seeing as this is the first time that Khaira has gone up against Trouba again after that, it wasn't much of a surprise that he dropped the gloves with him and took him on in a fight. Good for him. I don't think that any Blackhawks fan watching that game will forget the hit because it was very scary seeing him knocked out. Not that you really like to see guys with concussion histories, you know, fighting, but Jujhar Khaira wanted to send a message to Jacob Trouba that he did not forget about that, and so the fight ensued. Jacob Trouba had also been in a fight the night before. He's becoming quite the enemy around the NHL. But 8 minutes and 37 seconds into the second period, as the Blackhawks are on the power play, the New York Rangers win their defensive zone draw, but Taylor Radish is able to get the puck for them. It ends up on Patrick Kane's stick at the right half wall. Where else? From the bottom of the right circle, he passes to the top of the right circle to Seth Jones, who was wound up for that one-timer. He gets the shot off on Yaroslav Halak, but Halak makes the stop. Unfortunately for him, fortunately for the Blackhawks, that rebound goes directly to Patrick Kane, who was still at the bottom of the right circle. And with a gaping net, Kaner did not miss. He put that in the net to put the Blackhawks up 2-0. For someone who hasn't put up a bunch of goals this season in Patrick Kane, that one had to feel very good, especially, again, playing against the team where his good buddy Artemi Panarin is. And you have to think that Kaner likes scoring on the power play as well. Plus, it got him a little closer to a milestone, but we will talk about that in just a moment, because 9 minutes and 37 seconds into the second period, as the Blackhawks are still on a power play, Jonathan Toews, the captain of your Chicago Blackhawks, controlled the puck on the left wall, sent it to the point to Max Domi, who sent it over to Seth Jones, who passed the puck down to Patrick Kane at his favorite spot on the right side. Patrick Kane passed the puck back to Seth Jones. Seth Jones passed the puck back to Max Domi, who then walked to the top of the left circle and wristed that puck at the net, and he ripped that thing. It went in past Yaroslav Halak. The Blackhawks were up 3-0. That is 2 power play goals for the Blackhawks in exactly a minute. That, my friends, is what we love to see. What we also love to see is later in that second period, the captain of your Chicago Blackhawks, once again, Jonathan Toews, he sees Jacob Trouba back out on the ice, and Trouba laid a massive hit on Andreas Athanasiou in the middle of the ice. Athanasiou was skating with his head down, looked up, and just saw Trouba right in front of him, just trucking into him. It looked real nasty in real time. I'm not going to sit here and debate whether it was a clean hit or a dirty hit, but after that happened, Jonathan Toews said enough of this nonsense, and he dropped the gloves with Jacob Trouba. So that was Trouba's second fight of the night, and the second time fighting a Blackhawk with concussion history, but we'll just put that to the side because Johnny seems to be fine, Kara seems to be fine. I will just say that for a guy who was very unsure about where he wanted his future to go with this franchise, it is nice to see Jonathan Toews fired up defending his teammates, and he's having one heck of a season. So good on Johnny, but unfortunately he did draw the instigator penalty that put the Rangers on the power play, and 17 minutes and 51 seconds into the second period, Artemi Panarin has the puck on the right side, sends it to the point to Adam Fox, who gets it over to Mika Zibanejad at the top of the left circle, and Zibanejad did what he does. He blasted that one-timer into the net, past Peter Mrazek, and the game was 3-1, still in favor of Chicago. And that is how the second period ended. On to the third period. And Peter Mrazek did not come out to start the third period. Arvid Soderblom was in net. We would go on to learn that Mrazek once again suffered a groin injury. Apparently it's not the same injury, and Luke Richardson hopes he will only be out for a short period of time. But you have got to be kidding me. Mrazek already missed time this season with a groin injury. Alex Stalock took over most of the duties, but they did have to call up Arvid Soderblom from the Rockford Ice Hogs after only playing the first 2 games of the season down in the AHL. Then Alex Stalock gets injured, so Arvid's the guy. Thankfully, pretty soon after that, Peter Mrazek was able to come back and reclaim that quote-unquote starting position with Soderblom doing backup duty. But Alex Stalock is still out, so now Arvid is the guy once again because Peter Mrazek is injured once again. Does anybody have a spare goaltender? The Kings did. They put Cal Peterson on waivers. I don't know that anybody expected that. I was kind of hoping the Blackhawks would pick him up, even though he has more than just this year left on his deal. But for the love of hockey gods, we need goaltenders. Anywho, we were here to talk about the third period. And 4 minutes and 46 seconds into the third period, the Blackhawks are once again on a power play. Max Domi has the puck. He enters the zone down the right wing. He's on the right wall, passes it to the point to Patrick Kane as he entered the zone. Kaner looks over his options for just a moment, but then takes the long wrister toward the net. And Taylor Radish, right out in front, redirected that puck past Yaroslav Halak. The Blackhawks were once again on the board on the power play. That made it 4-1 in favor of the Chicago Blackhawks. And that was Patrick Kane's 1200th career point. Just what a career that guy has had. And how fun to get that going up against his buddy Panarin. So, congratulations, Kaner. I hope you don't leave. Anywho, 17 minutes and 15 seconds into the third period, the Blackhawks and Rangers are playing some 4-on-4 hockey. The Rangers have it in the offensive zone. Adam Fox passes it over to Artemi Panarin at the right point. He shoots the puck. It goes wide, but it bounced directly to Mika Zibanejad, who was at the bottom of the left circle. And as Chris Kreider is crashing the crease, Zibanejad sends it toward the net. It deflects off of Chris Kreider, it goes in, and Arvid Soderblom wanted a goaltender interference call because Chris Kreider was kind of laying on top of him by the end of that play. But, and these things aren't always easy to see at live speed for fans watching the game, because you're probably watching where the puck's at, and it was with Zibanejad. But Jake McCabe had shoved Chris Kreider into Arvid Arvid Soderblom. That is not goaltender interference, making that a good goal, and the game was then 4-2 in favor of the Blackhawks. But Arvid Soderblom did not allow another goal, and neither did Jaroslav Halak. But 18 minutes and 46 seconds into the third period, Max Domi hit that empty net to seal this game for the Blackhawks by a score of 5-2. And you could definitely say that the Blackhawks needed that game badly, because that Saturday night game against the New York Rangers broke an 8-game losing skid for the Hawks. And I know that the season isn't necessarily about winning every single game, but there were some games thrown into that losing streak. It started on November 14 against the Hurricanes, when Pyotr Kochetkov got his first NHL shutout, and the Canes beat the Hawks by a score of 3-0. The losing streak also included a 6-1 beatdown by the Boston Bruins and a 7-1 beatdown by the Winnipeg Jets. It also included a 6-4 loss to the Dallas Stars, and in that game the Blackhawks were leading by a score of 4-1 halfway through the third period. That's right, the Blackhawks had a 4-1 lead halfway through the final period of the game. 10 minutes left. All you gotta do is not allow 3 goals. Well, they allowed 5 and lost 6-4. The very next game, the Blackhawks went up against the Montreal Canadiens. That game did not end in regulation. That game did not end in overtime. That game went to a shootout where, as fate would have it, Kirby Dach of the Montreal Canadiens, formerly the 3rd overall draft pick of the Chicago Blackhawks, scored the shootout winner and gave the fans a little bit of a message. And this 8-game losing streak also included another crazy loss to the Edmonton Oilers, where this time the Oilers had a 4-1 lead halfway through the third period. And then the Blackhawks got 2 goals in 19 seconds from Max Domi and Mackenzie Entwistle, but then just over 15 minutes into the third period, Leon Draisaitl scored to give them a 2-goal lead once again. But Max Domi got his second power play goal of the night with under 2 minutes to go to make it 5-4 and give everybody hope. And then the final buzzer went and they lost 5-4, so all hope was lost. So again, the Hawks really needed that game against the Rangers. Some numbers from that game: the Blackhawks were outshot 28-21, but on the power play, the Blackhawks scored on 3 of their 4 chances. When it comes to hits, the Rangers out-hit them 31-30. Big difference, I know. But the Blackhawks blocked more shots, that being 20-15. So overall, a very strong road win for the Blackhawks in a building that is very hard to play in, even though the Rangers are struggling a little bit. And yes, they were playing the backup goaltender in Jaroslav Halak and not Igor Shesterkin. But again, maybe there wouldn't have been too much of a difference, seeing as the Rangers are struggling a bit this year. That's not to say they won't get it back on track and go back to the Eastern Conference Final. Anything is possible, but for now, they are struggling, and for now, the Blackhawks own that victory on Saturday night. So that brought us to Sunday night on the island, facing off against the New York Islanders, the other quote-unquote New York team. Again, sorry Buffalo, I didn't name your team. You're the ones who didn't put New York in your name. Anywho, of course, Arvid Soderblom was in net for this one. Again, Peter Mrazek out with another groin injury. The Blackhawks called up Jackson Stauber from the Ice Hogs, so we will just have to see how this goes with the goaltending. I really wish they would have done what I suggested from the very beginning and picked up another veteran goaltender in case of injury, like we have seen so far, but I don't make the decisions. And if you recall doing another little rewind in your brain, the last time the Chicago Blackhawks faced off against the Islanders this very season was the game that we lost Alex Stalock to a concussion, because Casey Cizikas took a shot shot on him, and he didn't change his path at all, running directly into Alex Stalock's brain. Yes, I know he had to hit the mask and then the skull and all of that, but with how hard he ran into him, I'm just gonna say he ran directly into his brain. It was a bad hit. It was a careless hit. He probably should have gotten more than a fine for it. I mean, he did get kicked from the game, but you know what I mean. But early on in this Sunday night game, Reese Johnson did not want to let Casey Cizikas forget what happened. He wanted to send a message for his goaltender, and he dropped the gloves with Casey Cizikas. So for the second night in a row, we have the Blackhawks fighting. Not typically something that this team does very often, but I guess that's just where we are these days because everybody keeps getting injured. And good for Reese sticking up for his goalie. Nobody really did anything in the initial game when Stalock was knocked out of the game. Perhaps because he was still conscious and able to skate off on his own, which in itself is just kind of silly, but it is what it is. But Reese Johnson brought that message to this game, sent it early, and then they just got on with the rest of it. Perhaps unfortunately, because the rest of the game didn't go very well for the Blackhawks. In the first period, there were 0 goals scored between either team. In the second period, the Islanders got 3 goals, those being from Matt Martin, Zach Parise, and Brock Nelson. And in the third period, there were no goals scored on either side. You could definitely tell this was a game where one team was tired from the night before, that being the Hawks after they had just beat the Rangers. But oh my goodness, that was a very lifeless effort from the away team. Shots on goal? 40-21 in favor of the Islanders. When it comes to the power play, Chicago had 1 chance and obviously did not convert on it. But if you want a silver lining, the Islanders had 2 power plays and also did not convert on those. The Blackhawks also blocked more shots, again 20-15, and hits were dead even at 19 aside. So after an uplifting good win Saturday night at Madison Square Garden, the Blackhawks went to the island and lost 3-0 in a very lifeless effort. So that brings me to what I'm going to call the state of the Blackhawks because it's been a little while since we have checked in. So I just want to go over some numbers here real quickly so we're all caught up. The Chicago Blackhawks have played 24 games this season. They have a record of 7-13-4. That is good for 18 points, which is more than all but 2 players on the roster have. It really only gets worse from here, I'm sorry. Goal differential. The Blackhawks have scored 61 goals this season, but they have allowed 88 goals. That is good for a -27 goal differential. Not the worst in the league, that belongs to the Anaheim Ducks, but I'm pretty sure they are second worst. They are also in 8th place in the Central Division, and there are only 8 teams in the division. So if you are doing the maths at home, that means they are in last. Yes, the Blackhawks are below the Arizona Coyotes, who are playing at Arizona State University. Not saying this is a horrible thing, it's a good thing for the draft picks. Should the Blackhawks actually, get a good lottery spot, it's always possible they fall out of the lottery spot. But early on in this season, we saw a lot of positive things from this Blackhawks team. I think the way they were playing surprised a lot of people around the team, be it fans, be it maybe the players themselves even, people who talk about the team. They were picking up some wins where they probably shouldn't, and they were just competing very hard. And while they haven't lost that compete, the wins kind of fell off a cliff because in their last 10 games, they have a record of 1-8-1. The 8-game losing streak did not help there at all, but the point still stands. When it comes to special teams, there is a bit of a surprise. The Blackhawks are converting on 25.3% of their power plays, which is good for 11th in the NHL. Color me shocked that they have an effective power play lately. But their penalty kill, on the other hand, it did start off strong to begin this season, sort of. Strong for this team, I will say. But now they are down to a 74.7%, and that is good for 23rd in the league. So that's kind of bad. Obviously not the worst, but it's kind of bad. But when it comes to face-off percentage, the Chicago Blackhawks are winning 56.2% of their face-offs, which is good for first in the entire league. Most of that is credit to, of course, Jonathan Toews, but Max Domi has also been pretty good at the dot himself. It's just a bit ridiculous that with all of these other numbers, they are first in the league in face-off percentage. And I know a lot of people like to argue that face-offs don't really matter, and I will say they do matter. They're not the key thing that will either win you a game or lose you a game, obviously, but they still matter. Winning key defensive zone draws can be the difference between winning and losing a game. So I'm not on either side here where face-offs don't matter, just ignore them, or face-offs are super important and we must rely heavily on them. Face-offs are a big part of the game and they are fairly important, especially in certain plays. Maybe not every shift and every play that comes off of a face-off, but more often than not, it is a very good thing when your team wins the face-off. A lot of that does come down to who controls the puck after the face-off win, obviously. As we saw with one of the goals I mentioned earlier in this video, where the Rangers won the face-off, but the Blackhawks got it back and it resulted in a goal. But I think that's one of these silly arguments when it comes to hockey, and there's a few, but I think that's definitely one of them. And then real quickly, before I close out this video, I do want to go over the top 10 point leaders on this team and some goalie stats. Number 1, we have Patrick Kane. He's got 4 goals and 16 assists for 20 points. Next up is Max Domi with 9 goals and 10 assists for 19 points. Jonathan Toews is in third with 8 goals and 6 assists for 14 points. Toews is followed by Philip Kurashev with 3 goals and 8 assists for 11 points. Taylor Radish is 5th, 7 goals and 3 assists for 10 points. Up next is Jason Dickinson, 4 goals and 6 assists for 10 points. Then we have Jones, no, not Seth, the other one, Caleb Jones, 1 goal and 8 assists for 9 points. Up next, Andreas Athanasiou, 6 goals and 3 assists for 9 points. In 9th, we have another defenseman, that being Jake McCabe. 1 goal and 7 assists is good for 8 points for McCabe. And last but not least, we have Sam Lafferty, who is currently injured, but he's got 3 goals and 4 assists on the season for 7 points. Now, when it comes to goaltenders, I'm just going to ask you to take a deep breath and let it out, and we are just going to go into this calmly, and it's just for information's sake, not necessarily positive information, just information. Peter Mrazek has played 9 games for the Chicago Blackhawks. He's got a 2-5-1 record. He is rocking an .884 save percentage and a 4.05 goals against average. Up next is Alex Stalock, who has played 7 games for the Blackhawks. Of course, he is currently injured, also like Mrazek. Stalock has a record of 3-2-1, so maybe it's easy to see where the winning ways kind of fell off for this team. Stalock has a .914 save percentage and a 2.93 goals against average. Last but not least, we have Arvid Soderblom. He's played 11 games for the Blackhawks, so he has the most games played on this team in terms of goaltenders. That was not part of the plan to start the year, but he has a record of 2-6-2. He is rocking a .906 save percentage and a 3.21 goals against average. So not the worst, especially for the position he was thrust into. He should still be in the American Hockey League with the Rockford Ice Hogs, but due to goalie injuries, he has had to spend most of the season up at Chicago. We will see if that ever changes. It would really be nice to have him back down in Rockford so they could solidify their goaltending while the rest of the team is starting to play better. But I digress. Those are the numbers for your Chicago Blackhawks. Next up, they face the New Jersey Devils tomorrow night. The second in the league New Jersey Devils with a record of 24-1. They are led in scoring by, of course, Jack Hughes. He has 13 goals and 16 assists for 29 points so far this season. Next up is Jesper Bratt with 9 goals and 18 assists for 27 points this season. And rounding out the top 3 is their captain Nico Hischier with 10 goals and 16 assists for 26 points. And again, they have a record of 24-1. This should be a great time tomorrow. But that is going to do it for me in this video. I'm glad to be back. I miss talking to y'all. If you would like to hear more from me or from Center Ice, you can head on over to FromCenterIce.com. There's links to all of the places you can find us over there. If you are more of a social media person, you can follow along on Twitter, Instagram, whatever you want. Those links are down in the description for you. And in between uploading the videos on here, I have still been fairly active on Twitter and talking about the games, of course. So the best way to keep up is definitely on there, and that is where you will get updates about this channel and anything else as well. All of that being said, thank you all so very much for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you. Hey, if you aren't subscribed yet, go ahead and do that. Give this video a like. That would make me so very happy. But again, I appreciate y'all. Get ready for tomorrow night's game against the high-flying New Jersey Devils, and I will catch y'all in the next video. Bye, guys.